They're shrugging off threats from Moscow and expelling more Russian diplomats. The Eastern European country of Moldova is the latest to take action, as well as the NATO military alliance. In all, some 24 countries are kicking out more than 100 Russian diplomats. It's a global response to the nerve agent attack on a former Russian spy and his daughter on British soil. The U.S. is leading the way, booting 60 diplomats and closing a facility, and now Moscow is vowing retaliation. CNN's Michelle Kaczynski is in New York. So, Michelle, there's a lot of international chatter over these moves, but still no word from President Putin or President Trump, right?
That's right. And Putin has weighed in on other important matters in his country, but not this. Although we have heard from a Kremlin spokesperson, we heard from the Russian ambassador to the U.S., warning the U.S. that there's going to come a time when it's going to realize that it's made a grave mistake. Although, for its part, the Trump administration has warned right back that if Russia does retaliate, which we fully expect it to do by expelling U.S. diplomats, then this administration may well take additional actions. And yesterday, President Trump had a phone call with Justin Trudeau of Canada. And in the readout, the White House said that this behavior from Russia is the latest in its ongoing pattern of destabilizing activities around the world. So we've heard from the White House through the press secretary. They put out this strong statement, not signed by the president or in the president's name. It was, like I said, from the press secretary. We heard from other administration officials using very strong terms in describing Russia's behavior. So the question remains, will we hear Trump at all weigh on this action that he was the final decider on? And if he does weigh in, what exactly will he say? How aligned will he be with those around him? And the reason we even have to ask this question is because it was only days ago that the same national security team around him told him in all capital letters not to congratulate Vladimir Putin on his election win. But Trump did just that. And he also didn't even bring up the poisonings in the UK on a phone call with Putin. So how bought in is he on this action? I mean, supposedly he was the one who decided to do this, again, at the recommendation of his national security team. But I think there are plenty of people out there wanting to hear from him on this directly, Brianna.
And that's the thing, is there's a lot of bipartisan support for these recent moves by the administration, but you're still seeing this difference. Well, one, that seems to be more of a new development, at least in terms of the intensity and the significance of what we're seeing. But there's quite a difference between the rhetoric that we've seen coming from the president as it pertains to Russia and Vladimir Putin from the very beginning of the time he came into the White House, Michelle.
Yeah, there's been this difference among even certain members of his administration and him. I mean, nothing wrong with that. People are always going to differ in their thoughts on something, how it should be handled, and in the way they present themselves. But at times with this administration, it has been quite stark. And remember, only recently, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, when he was Secretary of State, put out a statement in his name excoriating Russia over this poisoning attack. The next day, we saw him fired, and that raised questions because of prior things that Trump and members of his administration have said. Was he fired because of that statement? So it's strange to even have these questions, but they exist for a reason. And so when you see his national security team recommend something and then he do just the opposite, it makes sense that the next time they make a recommendation for this action to punish Russia over this poisoning attack,